The demand is always huge, and you do more with gunpowder than just use it in firearms. You know, it's also used in construction. You can use it in mining. You can use it for all sorts of things. You know, that it is a diverse product in and of itself. The person who started the Gunpowder Yards, his name is Eleuther Irénée Dupont. He saw that gunpowder would be a good way to get a toehold in manufacturing in the United States. Whenever the Dupont family came to America, they had a prospectus of several businesses they wanted to try. You know, among them being getting into land speculation, getting into dry goods, various types of manufacturing. That his father, E.I. Dupont's father, Pierre Samuel Dupont, was a big economic thinker in France during the French Revolution and even before. And so one of his ideas was to have a diversified economy, you know, that you produce everything you need at home. And so you get everything from the raw material to the finished product, you know, that you do that at home and you're not dependent upon other nations. You know, so again, it's about diversifying what you do. So the family took that to heart, you know, and tried that when they came to the U.S. Gunpowder ended up being 7th or 8th down the list. You know, it wasn't the first thing they wanted to try to do. You know, but they found that nobody was really manufacturing explosives in the United States and doing any doing any good at it. You know, the Europeans were the ones who dominated the market in that period. A lot of people are, no pun intended, blown away by it, you know, on account of it's just big. You know, a lot of folks don't expect to encounter the scale of this place. This factory at its height took up 2.5 miles of the Brandywine. You know, so it's a rather large place, you know, and you encounter large machinery. When you go to see the roll mills, I mean, this is a large machine, you know, a lot bigger than people are used to seeing in their daily lives. So I think that it just kind of, people are taken aback by seeing something like that. The biggest reason to come here was water power. You know, with the Brandywine, you're kind of sitting on a fall line here in Delaware. And so you have a lot of moving water. So it's easy to put in mill races, you know, which are the little canals that you see around some of the manufacturing areas in that period, so that you can generate water power.
The water comes from the mill race. This water that we're standing over, and it's come out of the Brandywine Creek. About a half a mile behind me upstream, the creek is the same height as the mill race. In a half a mile, the creek drops 20 feet, and we've created an artificial hill that could run all the buildings. What we're going to do in order to get it to go down there is open what's called a sluice gate. That's the device down here. The water's going to go through a 3-foot diameter pipe, start a turbine, just like it did in the 19th century, and then 2 large 8-ton cast iron wheels. A total of 20 tons of equipment will be used to grind up those 3 ingredients, the charcoal, sulfur, saltpeter, or potassium nitrate.
So if you came here in 1820, you know, one of the first things you would notice is all the racket. You know, it's a very loud place to work. You know, it's not like going into a textile factory where it's in one building. You know, this is spread out, you know, over the Brandywine. By 1820, it took up about a mile. The gunpowder factory took up about a mile of the Brandywine. So you're going to hear water wheels rolling. You're going to hear this equipment moving. You know, all the sounds, you know, of those mortar and pestle systems smacking around. One of the things that everybody noted was how loud the factory was. You're also going to notice a lot of horses that are about too, so you definitely smell horses. You know, they used horses to pull wagons through the powder yards. So if you're moving raw ingredients from one place to another, or if you're moving, you know, the gunpowder from one place to another, that's how you move it. You either had the men themselves push the carts in front of the buildings, and whenever they got out from in front of the buildings, you hook up the horses and have them pull it the rest of the way.
Three years ago, the museum found a turbine down here in the weeds. We knew it was there. We uncovered it, took it out, renovated it, and this year put it back into operation. So we have the ability to run the machine shop the same way that it was done in about the 1890s.
They recovered one of the turbines that ran the machine shop and were able to rebuild it and put the machine shop back on water power, you know, as it was originally intended to run. Dupont family never wanted to see people get killed or hurt in the gunpowder yards. But then also, you couldn't get insurance on a gunpowder factory during the 19th century. You had to self-insure. You know, if you had an accident, something burned down, something exploded, you have to pay to replace it yourself. You know, so safety is a big issue, you know, again, because you want to keep people safe and you want to keep your equipment safe. Efficiency is another thing too. You know that with manufacturing, it's about economy of scale. You know, you want to produce a whole lot with the least amount of energy and the least amount of capital investment. So changing your equipment just means that you can do things better. You can do it more quickly and you can do it better. So changing from one type of manufacturing process to another, you know, that's part of what that's for. Getting from the stamp mills, which is just a large mortar and pestle, to the roll mills, which are large iron wheels that roll around in a trough, you know, that just makes the process a lot more efficient. Black powder, it's inherently a global process because most of your ingredients don't come from the United States. The best place in the world to get saltpeter was India, and you had to purchase that via Great Britain. Great Britain controlled India at that point. So you had to go through English shipping merchants or gunpowder merchants to get, or again, saltpeter merchants to get it. You know, sulfur came out of France, it came out of Italy, so you had to deal with people in Europe to get sulfur. Most of the charcoal was done domestically. You know, you could cut trees from the Brandywine, you can cut them from around other places domestically and get it that way. But also in shipping the finished product back out, by 1860, DuPont had agencies around the world. They had agencies in Buenos Aires in South America. They had them in Australia. They had it in Africa at that point. The only market the only market that DuPont didn't have by 1860 was the European market, and that's just because the European manufacturers had such a lock on that.
This is a gunpowder tester. What we're going to do is we're going to put less than a gram into a container, close that up, and when we ignite that, it's going to rotate the wheel. So that would just be a relative measure as to how good this was. It's really comparing it to a standard. You just want every batch to be equally the same. It's gone from there, just with creating the gases, it's gone about 3/4 of the way around, which is good gunpowder. And everything we did today would have been exactly the same.
It was kind of a slow move away from explosives. That they found that there was a lot of money to be made in the chemical business. And so it wasn't just textiles. Textiles was a small part of a larger chemical business that the company got itself into. You know, so they ended up tapering themselves off. After World War II was the last big time that they made explosives. You know, and so then after that, you know, they tapered themselves out of it, and then by the early 80s, for the most part, we're out of the explosives business. That DuPont got out of specifically black powder manufacture between World War I and World War II. That black powder was still pretty useful of a thing. It's interesting seeing where it all goes. You know, it's interesting to see that gunpowder, again, is more than just something you use for war. You know, that part of what made the fortune, the DuPont fortune, you know, wasn't selling to armies. It was selling, you know, to people who were making, you know, building roads, building railroads, you know, selling into mining and that sort of thing. Make no mistake, you know, the DuPont family got into this business to make money, you know, but they also, you know, didn't want to have to walk over people's backs to do it.